Am I? Okay. You can all hear me. Hello, everyone. My name is Simona. I am currently a software developer at NASDAQ for the GenAI platform. But for 5 years before joining NASDAQ, I have been in the research field. I've did my bachelor's, my master's, and I tried to involve myself really actively in any research project I could get my hands on. And my life was a bit of a mess. I had my web browser with 50 tabs open, trying to find papers, looking at papers that I need to read, that I have read. Sometimes I would get lost. Sometimes I would find, oh, this is a cool paper, but then realize that I have read it already. In last year, deep research came out. And deep research promises, already too late for me, but it promises that it's going to give a structured report or structured literature review with multiple sources cited, cross-referenced in 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm going to be able to read it, quickly skim through what's out there, and have a great starting point for my research and on deciding what to do next. What exactly is this deep research? Deep research is mostly multi-agent chain that has some orchestrator agent and with specified tasks, or sometimes not, sub-agents. Orchestrator agent usually delegates its own tasks to its own little workers. It's like the brains of the operation, the big boss. Or it can delegate tasks to some general sub-agents that does the work for it, and you don't have to have every single step of your research in that one agent, so you can manage your context easier. My master thesis has been on ocean microbiome. So throughout the presentation, I'm going to refer to it a bit, but that's just an example that I had, and I could compare with the research that I already did. So this is a graph of my own deep research system that I have built using LangChain, and it all starts with a plan. A good plan is really essential for your own answering your own research question. And the planning agent is just a single agent that doesn't have any little workers, but it has a very specific system prompt that it has to turn user query into structured research plan with some sub-questions, identify which queries are independent. So that means which query is enough on its own, or which query actually needs some research before it can specify some deeper question. Assign priority to each task, but the plan also has to be concise. And for me, what was really important, that the plan has to take in feedback. I, as a user, have to receive the plan and be able to review it, maybe add some extra tasks that the agents will have to work on, and maybe just specify some queries a bit more. This output then can be passed on to orchestrator agent. As you can see, I asked for a very short plan on ocean, how temperature in the oceans have impact on its microbiome. And it identified, for example, that there are some tasks that can run in parallel and some tasks that, in order for it to be valuable. It needs to do some research beforehand to identify focus queries, and that would be formulated after doing previous research. This plan, structured, is given to the orchestration agent. As I mentioned, the brains of your own operation. Here, I used LangChain's Deep Agents library. How many of you have heard or used LangChain's Deep Agents? LangChain? Okay, not many. So LangChain's Deep Agents provides agent harness and gives our orchestrator agent some tools and allows it to use sub-agents for context management, for easier context manager, file management, and it allows us to develop multi-agent systems very easily. This is an example of the code. I abstracted it a bit so that it fits on the slide, but the thought is quite simple. You, in orchestrator system prompt, you note the tasks and give the tasks to sub-agents that can run in parallel. You have the listed sub-agents. You delegate your tasks. Instead of doing it in an orchestrator agent, you delegate the tasks to specific researchers. You gather the results, and then from the gathered results, you delegate to another agent. That will be a doc analyzer. I will speak a bit in the next slides. You need to score the results, and that task is also delegated. So it's like your team manager. They don't really care what you do day to day as long as you deliver results. And lastly, it decides based on one of the sub-agents' reflector feedback if the draft is ready to be exported or if you need to do some more iterations and some more research. What are these little workers of ours? We have two main researchers. So that would be web researcher and RAG researcher. Our web researcher can search open web, for example, using Tavily. And for each question, it would paraphrase it a bit and phrase 2 to 3 query phrasings for each of our questions from the plan. And it would fetch its documents from the web and identify 3 or 5 most promising sources. Web researcher itself assigns us initial score for our documents. That is usually how relevant our document is to the question that we have asked. Similarly, we can do with RAG. That is, if you have documents that are not publicly available, that are your private documents that you store in your company, maybe some unpublished research that you yourself did, you store it in some vector database, and it does the same. It runs a reg research, and it assigns a score and a similarity score between the query embedding and the document chunk. All of this information is then given to the document analyzer. And this, at least to me, is where a lot of the magic happens. A document analyzer for each of the document from the web and from the RAG assigns a weighted score that determines how later agent, that is the drafter agent, will look at your source. This weighted score consists of type of the source, so where this document comes from. Academic paper, is it some primary source as in documentation? Is it reputable news, a blog, a forum? Maybe your information comes from Reddit or Stack Overflow. It assigns that source a certain score. And each source also gets assigned a reliability score. That is how credible and trustworthy your source is. That is author's credentials, for example. If your academic paper comes from highly reputable Nature, or maybe from some paper, or maybe it's a paper that's open source, not published anywhere. And lastly, from the RAG and from the web search, from the scores we got, of the similarity scores that we got, we also get a relevancy score. And that is how relevant or how well the document answers the question it's supposed to answer. From here, you want to go into the report, drafting your own report. You select the top sources. You got the weighted score from the document analyzer, you selected the top sources. You write a report with predefined structure. In research and science, it's usually some abstract, some overview and background, some key findings, limitations and gaps, summary, and references. References, for me, is where you really want to invest some time on how you define them. Because the LLMs might hallucinate, drift a bit, or misinterpret the information, you really want to, in the reference, to see not only what kind of paper it's referencing, but also from where in the paper or in your source its information comes from. Here, the drafter also notes contradicting sources. So let's say on Reddit, some person is claiming one thing, and on, I don't know, climate change is not real. And in your scientific papers, you see completely different. Because of the weighted score, we can discard this Reddit post and only use what's out there in the scientific papers. And in the end, you get a clean report with the specified structure, some references, and some critical analysis. This report then goes into the reflector. So a reflector scores your draft based on the quality. Here, you want to see how well do you cover the topic that you researched. How much factual support you actually have. Do you only have one paper to follow up your claim, or do you have 3? How deep your research goes. Is it very superficial, or do you actually get quite some details? And of course, consistency. How well your background goes with your summary. Here, the reflector can list the gaps, for example, lacks of coverage, and come up with some follow-up queries to ask in the following iteration. After all of this, it comes up with a score and decides how to proceed. Is it enough research, or do we go again? So here's an example reflection. We got a quality score of 0.72. We identified some gap, but that doesn't tell us anything, right? We identified some actual gaps that the draft is missing. It also came up with some follow-up queries that need some more investigation. And it says, proceed false. Do not proceed with exporting this report. It does not reach our arbitrary 0.75 quality score. So we will run the research again and see where we get there. This was the end of my experiment. Was it great? It was okay, I think. But it always could use with some enhancements that I think I could do in the future. One of the main enhancements that I think I should try is agent skills. Here again, raise of hands who have heard of agent skills. Have used it? Okay. For those who are not familiar, agent skills are folders of instructions and scripts. And you can also add resources that agent can discover and use during runtime to, instead of pushing everything into context, you add it, you decide if to use it or not. And this really helps us to research more accurately in this case. My idea for the skills would be to have research-specific skills. So I have this general deep research agent, but maybe a skill could be more specified instruction that this is the skill for researching in oceanography. This is a skill to research in computer science. So that it's more specified, it has some specific instructions that you don't have to repeat. You maybe have some conditions you want to put in there, but that's only invoked at the time when you need them to, instead of putting everything into context immediately. And my second enhancement would be adding a replanning tool. So after every iteration, instead of piling up on additional queries, we also look at the reflection and we replan our draft instead of adding to it. So is the research problem solved? At the end, I got a structured literature review. I got it in 10 minutes. And after a single iteration, I got 10 sources cited. What really surprised me in a good way, because I was very skeptical going into this, is that it managed to fetch one of the key papers in ocean microbiology and how temperature affects it, which I was very glad about. And it really gave me hope that maybe we could do research fully autonomously with deep research. But I don't know, every silver lining has a cloud. It does drift from specified topics because we might not get plan specific enough. It did go for me from temperature to other ocean factors that were not as important to me. And every deep research does require some fact checking. That's why I recommended in the references to put the whole paragraph where the agent gets its information from, so you can actually fact check and see, is the information from the paper misinterpreted or actually factually correct? And one of the most unfortunate things is that even though it manages to find the papers, it cannot go through a paywall. So if you have scientific papers that need a subscription to fetch them, you're not going to actually get them in deep research, or you're going to get abstract from it, but nothing more. How does my proof of concept compare to deep research out there? You probably know about deep research that Gemini offers, maybe Anthropic, OpenAI. There's also the one that I did a bit of a deep dive in was NVIDIA AIQ, because it's open source and you can find all the instructions on GitHub. So from what I gathered, I used LangChain's deep agent. Well, one orchestrator, and that's usually the case in Anthropic as well, and NVIDIA. I personally predefined agents and their tasks to do, and I followed a very strict flow. Okay, you do the research, you draft the report, you reflect on it, you either iterate again or you export it. For Anthropic, at least from what I found in their documentation, some unspecified subagents are spun up to do the research, and they are assigned tasks by lead researcher. NVIDIA does it similar to what I do, and that is it has predefined subagent architecture with orchestrator, shallow or deep research, and clarifiers. And on the reflection, I use the scoring system with a reflection loop and, of course, maximum iterations so that the deep research does not run forever. Anthropic did not specify explicit scoring, but it's decided by lead researcher when to stop. And NVIDIA has a think tool that basically checks for if all the specified constraints are met. I hope this kind of inspires you to do your own deep research, or maybe just use LangChain's deep agents. I'm not affiliated with LangChain, but I do find the tool is very cool. It allowed me to build this system very fast. I mostly spent my time fine-tuning it. And if you have any questions about deep research, or maybe deep agents, or how I use them, or how maybe you could use them, please drop me a DM on LinkedIn and let's chat. Thank you.